Page 113, exercise 8.4. This is about legato pedaling, according to the book. It's what the book calls it. The pedaling technique has different names to it, but legato works too. Could also be called smooth pedaling. It could be called overlap pedaling. Call it what you want to call it, I reckon. The idea is in legato passages, that is, passages where there's sound constantly, there's no silence. This is a technique that can be used to ensure there's sound all the time. This is actually the technique I use most of the time. It's the technique I taught most of my students most of the time. This is the one that's used the most. A little bit about how the pedal, I don't know if I've covered this before or not. The idea with this pedal, and we're talking the right side pedal here, the one on the right. If you have an electronic keyboard, you only have one pedal. That's it. That's good enough. But the idea with it is when you push that pedal down, all the dampers on all the strings come up off the strings, so the strings can vibrate any way they want, however, how much, whatever. Well, when you do that, it changes the tone of a note. For instance, if I just play a note without the pedal, it's here. Any note, doesn't matter. If I play that same note with the pedal down, it's here. If you listen carefully, they're not the same. They sound different. I don't know about an electronic keyboard, if they really sound different or not. I'd have to experiment. But the idea is that with the pedal down, all these other strings can vibrate. And do, many of them do, not all, but many of them do. And that changes the tone. When you first start a note, there's three ways you can pedal it. I can push the pedal down before I play the note, like so. I can push the pedal down when I play the note. I can push the pedal down after I play the note. If you listen really carefully, those don't sound the same. There's a little bit of difference. The idea of pushing the pedal down before I play the note is usually done with chords, loud chords, because it provides an explosive sound. The dampers are up, the strings can do whatever they want, and when you play that chord, all the overtones and everything go wild immediately. Well, when you push the pedal down with the note, it's about the same thing, except it's done in times when you don't have time to push the pedal down first. And at times when you want to push the pedal down after the note started, the idea is to start the sound first and then release all the overtones and let them go crazy. So you kind of build into it. In legato pedaling, we push the notes down first and then the pedal. In exercise 8.4, in the first measure, the chord, if I play the notes first and then the pedal. I'll keep the pedal down. Now you see that under the bottom staff there's a pedal line, an indication. This book starts it with PED, then you get a line, and then occasionally you get these little up arrows in the line. And then at the end of the line, you get a line that goes up. Most publishers anymore, when they indicate pedal, at the beginning, they will have a vertical line that goes down, and that's your indication to put the pedal down. They don't use the letters PED. Some publishers don't use that line going across. So some of them don't use this little up arrow. There's different. But this is the most common notation, so this is what we're sticking with. Now, in the second measure, you play the chords. You notice that little up thing for the pedal line, the little arrow thingy? Probably has a name, I don't know what it is. It simply means to lift the pedal up and put it right back down. Now you don't have to be real quick about it, just up and down. So it would go like this. I would forget the rhythm, I'm not counting rhythm, it's just the notes. We're here on the first measure. And then on the second measure, I'm going to play the notes and then lift the pedal up and back down. Like so. It overlaps it. Hence the name overlap pedaling. Now the overlap is very short and the ears don't mind it if you keep it short because you're really hearing two chords, this one and this one at the same time. They sound like that. But it's a very short thing, so the ear doesn't care. And the third measure is the same thing. I would play that chord in the third measure and then lift the pedal up. So the pedal lags behind. What it does is it ensures that you always have sound. You don't have to be exact with the pedal. The sound will always be there. If you try and change it with the note and you're a little bit off, you're a little bit early, the sound will dip just a little bit and it won't be totally smooth legato. The other thing I need to point out is these pedal indications of when to put it down, when to change the pedal, and when to lift it up in most music is not exactly where you do it. You have to know where to do it. They're simply telling you change pedal at this location. If you take a look in this book on page 153, I think it is, there's pedals used in that exercise, and the up arrows are immediately under the chords, and that's how most publishers do it. It'll be directly under the chords. You have to know that you're going to overlap it, so you don't put it down and lift it up and change it exactly where the music tells you to. Now in exercise 8.4 they are showing you exactly where you need to do it, but that's just to show you that's how it's done. You won't find it like that in music. I'm not going to play exercise 8.4. I don't see the point. I think hopefully you can handle those. And the idea is simply change the pedal after each one. So just briefly, that's in 2/2 time. I'm not going to use the metronome or count this. I just want to play the chords and change the pedal so you can see the relationship between the hands and the pedal. So it's like this at the start. And then the next chord. And then the third measure, and then the fourth measure, next measure, last measure, and at the end my hands and the pedal come up at the same time. I want to throw one more little pedal technique at you that the book doesn't seem to offer. I'll give you a little more than they're offering here, and that is when you're playing a piece that ends really, really softly, it's kind of dying away, it's a sweet piece, a nice piece, it's something that you can fall asleep to. Let's pretend the last chord in this is here, and let's pretend that this is just really, really, really soft and you've died away and you're here. Well, if I lift the pedal in the hands at the same time, the sound stops. It's a little out of character when you're dying away. What we want is to have the sound continue to die away. So what we do is first, I'm going to play it. First, I'm going to slowly release the keys, lift the hands up off the keys, but I'm going to keep my hands touching the keys. I'm just not pushing them down. And then I'm going to lift the pedal up ever so slowly. And that lets the dampers come down on the strings ever so slowly, and the sound dies away. So it's like this. Hands come up first, and then the pedal comes up slowly. And the sound just dies away. It's just a really neat technique if you'll do it that way. The reason you keep your hands on the keys until the sound stops is just good technique. As long as there's noise coming from the instrument, keep your hands on the keys. I know there are times for showiness in various pieces, you might lift them up, da-da-da, I'm done, and well, there's still sound going, but that's for show. That's not what I'm talking about. Most of the time, you will keep your hands on the keys as long as there's sound coming out of the instrument. That's about all I have to say about that.